And transition. This is the Craig Collins Show. Ooh, that's very loud for anybody listening right there. Sorry about that, you guys. But this is the Craig Collins Show, and it is also Veteran Voices. I decided to wait a little bit to fire off my show. It's what, in the industry of podcasting, you call cross promotion. That's what this is right now. Eric Thurman is sitting with me. He is the brand new host as of last week of Veteran Voices. You booked a fancy guest. I was talking to him before.
Very fancy.
Yes, he's a very fancy guest. CEO, president of the Honor Flight, Luke Rosenbohm. I learned all about the correct way to spell his name just before he got here.
I just put R and scribble like a doctor does,
It's good, yeah. Before we get to Luke and before we chat about Honor Flight, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what the goal is for everything that we're going to be doing here for Veteran Voices Network is what we're calling it, right?
Right. The Veteran Voices Network, Craig, we're trying to build a group of different shows that touch different aspects of veteran issues. And again, like I talked to you about earlier, even the issue of political talk.
Yep.
Because it kind of lays right into our laps of what we're about.
Yeah. So starting on Monday, I'm going to be doing my regular talk show thing that I've been doing some other places, and even filling in on. I'm actually filling in for Dana 3 times next week too. So I'll be going from the Dana show to our show, which is part of the Veteran Voices Network. We're working on some kind of morning show thing, I think, at some point.
Absolutely.
Also, we will probably have a few other products out there. Maybe even the Honor Flight will have something that airs through our network. And then you'll do your show once every single Friday. And you have Casper Beer sitting in front of you, too.
Absolutely.
See, that's awesome.
Casper Beer.
Yeah. We're working on a way to get Casper a more prominent role in the Veteran Voices.
Dig in his pockets, I think, Craig.
Let's
put our hands in his pockets and see what we can do.
Yeah, that's all. We're just going to ask him for money.
He's an Air Force guy. You know what the heck.
You know what I really love about that, too, though, real quick, is if you're on the radio in some places, they're like, oh, I don't know if you should do alcohol on the radio. But now it's the internet. Now we can do whatever we want.
Even if it's a radio, Craig, we can make our own things now, right?
All right. So let's do it. Let's bring in your guest, and then I'm going to step out of here and actually keep producing this thing from afar. But Luke Rosenbaum's going to come in, and his microphone is now officially live. And if you want to, Eric, you can shift over to this mic.
That sounds like a plan to me.
Okay, you want to do that. All right, here we go. Your mic's off now. You're right there. All right. You can put in headphones here if you want.
I don't need any headphones. I'm good. And welcome to Veteran Voices. I'm your host, Eric Thurman, and today we're going to bring in our guest, Luke Rosenbohm. He is the CEO and director/leader of the Greater Peoria Honor Flight. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Awesome. A quick question for you here.
Okay.
Are you was you raised locally here?
I was. Yep.
So that's a good feature that a lot of people don't realize, that a leader of such a large organization is a local veteran. And not just an implant that said, hey, I transferred from Florida and now I'm here and I'm taking over stuff in Central Illinois.
Yeah, so I've got, I was raised off the approach end of 1-3. The reason I say that is because I became a pilot in the Air Force. So, that probably had something to do with
everything is related to like a runway, isn't it?
Usually, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, that plane's going to this runway or that runway, depending on where you're at in town. Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Peoria. So
what high school did you go to?
I went to Limestone.
Limestone, great. That's awesome. That's a lot of people don't realize that, and a lot of people don't realize that the organization itself now has a leader that is from the area, and is an actual veteran of the area. So kind of a twofold deal there.
Yeah, and a lot of guys or a lot of service members are, went active duty, went around, different places. So I was in high school when I signed up in the Air Guard, so I'm what you call a guard baby. Like I backfilled at other active duty places or bases and for different units, but I've always been a 182nd guard baby. So.
Now you also served over in Afghanistan?
Yep. I had 2 tours in Afghanistan and then a couple in what they would quote say Southeast Asia, because
and as a pilot,
location,
correct?
Right? Yeah.
Not a stewardess and all that.
No, not a flight attendant. Nope. I was a pilot. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
C-130s, I'm assuming.
Yep. C-130s out of Peoria.
Nice.
So the view up there is pretty nice. So it's a good time.
Rode one over there.
Yeah. It's funny because I have ran into so many veterans after the fact, or even traveling through the Army bases whenever we were helping do training, and they'd see that orange tail stripe and they're like, "Hey, you guys got me out of this place, or you took me in, but you came back and got me. And it's like, yeah, we'll always come get you. Just give us a call. So,
That's very
but
interesting.
yeah, everybody, it's nice to know that Peoria is well known out in the veteran community, out in the active duty worlds. Like everybody knows they can count on Peoria.
That's awesome. My next question for you is going to be, how were you approached to take over the leadership role at Greater Peoria?
So I'd gotten, my retirement out of the military was abrupt. I got medically retired. They don't like pilots flying with blood clots in their lungs. So obviously that wasn't in the normal plan. And so I was like, I wanted to still be involved with veterans, but I was like, I don't know. And so the founders knew, my wife and I knew about the situation. And so actually like, hey, can you come be a guardian at large? I'm like, I know I'm an extra large, sure, but I don't know what that means. Like I didn't know what it meant at the time. And like, well, we have a veteran here in the Bartonville area. Mr. Pickle needs somebody to go out to DC with him for the day. You'd have to go meet with them, go have lunch or dinner or breakfast, something with, just get to know them before you go. And so that was my first time actually seeing the other side of Honor Flight. So I guess I should back up a little bit. I had been a part of Honor Flight as far as what the welcome home side, because service members will go up and catch them off the jet bridge, welcome them home, kind of give them a little welcome home, and then they get surprised with, the big welcome home.
That's always
And
a fun thing.
the cool thing about that is I remember the time looking over at my wife, Yvonne, because we've taken the kids there ever since we've been home. So I got back from training in about 2014, and so if I was in town, we went to the Honor Flight to welcome them home. And I remember seeing like the first flight that had some Vietnam veterans on there. And I looked at Yvonne and I said, this is going to matter so much more. Like, not to take away from the World War II guys or the Korean veterans, but to get a welcome home for a Vietnam guy, like I was like, this is going to matter so much more. And now we have almost all Vietnam veterans on our flight. And so the impact is so much bigger. So get back on track to the question. I was a guardian at large. And after that, I was like, hey, you need anything, any help, whatever it is, I'd be happy to help. And they're like, cool. Called me up like a month later. You want to go be a bus captain? I'm like, sure. I didn't pay attention that much, but I'll figure it out. And so when we're in DC, we get 4 buses, and we have a representative from Honor Flight be a bus captain. So that way we can kind of keep things organized, do a roll call every time, make sure we don't forget anybody. That was the important thing. And in my training, they always said, don't forget a veteran. I said, okay, I got that part. And, you only listen to 50%. I think they said, don't forget anyone else too, but I caught the don't forget the veteran part, right? So never left a veteran, but I did get a call from one stop to the next, and they're like, hey, this is Ross. I'm like, hi, Ross. Hey, I'm on the yellow bus. I'm like, good for you. Like, he's like, well, I'm supposed to be on your bus, but
So your record isn't really
I was like,
quite
okay,
clean,
well,
right?
that was a yellow shirt. And a yellow shirt was a medical person that we take to just kind of keep things safe for the veterans
Sure.
while we're out in DC. And so that was one trip. And then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get fired. And they're like, hey, you want to come and do it again? And I was like, all right, I'll be a bus captain again. One mistake. I'm glad you're not judging me on one mistake. That trip, I left the news. And so they were late to the bus, and I didn't even realize they were late to the bus because we went to the next one. I'm like, where's the camera guy? Like, I can't find this guy. And I'm like, oh no, I forgot him. And so they had a nice long walk and had a conversation on that walk about how they should probably show up to the bus times all right, or on time.
Scheduling is very, very important. It seems, right?
Apparently, yeah. Well, I mean, you're hanging out with a bunch of veterans, so
Right.
we all like if you're on time, you're late. So
Right.
you better be there 15 minutes early. Well, then that whole saying, if you screw up, you move up. So I guess I can't go any higher now. So that you get put at the president like I'm plateaued early. So, but no, the serious side of it was I was approached by the founders and said, listen, we would like to start taking steps back. And I had a really good heart-to-heart with one of the founders, and she's like, it's time that a veteran, like, we started this because we saw the value in Peoria. We saw the value of taking care of our veterans. She said, the idea of having a veteran be in charge of this organization as we're passing it on just makes us feel comfortable that you will take this and continue it. And, it's not me that makes the whole organization work. It's the volunteers that show up. I always say, if something went wrong, it's more than likely my fault. I screwed something up. Which several times you can ask several people. They'll be like, "Yep, he screwed it up."
But just go back to those bus captain days, and you can explain.
Yes, yes. See, but the reality is the volunteers that show up, they make it work, and they've done such a good job at making it look easy for the most part. Like
Right.
it just happens. Like there's times people just show up and they just start doing something. Like, how'd you know what to do? We've been doing it a long time. We know what to do. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about your wife.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a fun thing because I've met your wife, and just a little bit because we're trying to get a little bit of people to understand, the face and the person behind
Right.
everything that's going on. So I know she's not from America.
She is not.
Now, did you meet her while you was over in Afghanistan on some kind of trip over there, or
All right.
annual training type deal?
As most military members meet their wives, it was in a pub, and it was a pub in Poland. So she is not Polish. Let's get that clear. She is not Polish. She is Scottish, but she was there with the Count of Poland, who actually lives in Arizona. But that's a whole nother story. We don't have time for that. And so she was there with that organization. I was there helping train the Polish Air Force. At the time, I was enlisted, so I was maintenance. So we were helping to train the Polish Air Force on how to do maintenance on C-130s. Get them the way it was explained to me was the old way of maintenance was, well, if the pilot said it was working when he landed, fuel it up and just put it back out there for him to fly again. I remember one time we were like, we're going to take this panel off. We're going to make sure this thing works underneath this ramp. And they're like, well, is it broke? No, but we're going to check it. But why would you take the panel off if it's not broke? Because it's preventative maintenance, but it's not broke. We went rounds for a little bit.
Sure.
No, and I ran through O'Hare Airport to make my connecting flight. My luggage did not run as fast. So I didn't have luggage when I showed up there. So I couldn't go into work. All my uniforms were in my bag. So for 3 or 4 days, I didn't have luggage on like a 2.5 week TDY. So I'm like, I'm pretty worthless here. So I was the wingman. So anyone wanted to go out to the pub or whatever, like they'd knock on my door. Hey, want to go to the pub? Okay, go. Nope, you got to come with me.
Being the wingman, you must have a reputation at the pubs.
No, there wasn't a reputation. It was just they knew I didn't have to go into work, so I couldn't tell them no. So, but it worked out. I mean, I met my wife.
Sure. And she tells a lot of good stories about that, so it's interesting. That's why I want to hear your side.
So the better part of it is I got home from that trip a few weeks later, deployed to Afghanistan, came back, and then and I never thought I'd see her again. Like, to be honest, but she said, "Hey, you ever come through Scotland? Shoot me a message." And so I did, and I told her, "Hey, we might land in Scotland, we might land in England." By the time we landed in Scotland, got bused to the airport, or not the airport, the hotel. That was back when Skype was about the only way you could communicate internationally, right? And so I get Skype up and I call her and I'm like, "Hey, I'm in Prestwick," which I wasn't. I was in Air. Yeah, I think that's how that worked. Yeah, we landed in Prestwick, stayed in Air, and she's like, "Yeah, are you at the whatever hotel we're at?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Come downstairs." I'm like, "Okay, I was in Romania this morning. I told you I might be here, and how are you down?" And sure enough, she was down in the lobby. So yeah, so Scottish. I don't think Scotland spies on us, but if she's a spy, that's okay. It's been working out. Yeah, we've been married. Yeah, we got 3 kids. Like it'll be fine. So she's a sleeper cell.
And it's funny, and the reason I brought that up is she's just as well involved as you are, doing some behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't see, being a veteran's wife, and, of course, supporting you. I know she has a passion for the American people as well, and I just thought it was an interesting take on that.
Well, we actually had a conversation about that last night. We ran into another veteran family, and the conversations we were having about, like, everything my wife and I do, we do together. Like, we've tried to do that. Well, you do this and I do that. Like, now we do have our lanes that we stay in, but like, we don't do things independently. Like, it's always together. Same with Honor Flight. And the thing is I think a lot of military families do that because it is like when one's gone, you got to back the other one up. And one thing we've realized is like we've got veterans that'll say, hey, we want to take our wives, and that's big hub policy. You can't take your spouse to DC. And it's like, but you're talking to these guys that have been retired for however, a decade or two. They do everything with their spouse, and that spouse has been there with them the whole time. So that day is weird for them, in that sense. Like, where's my right hand? I don't know where my
Right.
So it has been something that we want to try and figure out how that works in honor flight, because we do have spouses that sit, if they're coming from out of town, they're just sitting over at the hotel waiting all day for their loved one to get home. It's like, how do we incorporate them? Because it's just like every squadron or every unit, they had the family side of it also. The squadron commander's wife, helped keep everybody in the squadron aware of things, and they get together. So it's like, how do we kind of mimic that thing? Because it is a veteran organization. So we'll leave all the government side out of this thing, and then it'll work great, right? So
we think kind of funny you sit there and think about the people, the guys that are there, the veterans that have their wives all the time.
Yeah.
And you just got to know and sit there and think that some of these guys are actually celebrating a day away from their significant other. That it's a break for them, I mean, not in a bad way. It's just.
Well, I think the reason Hub made the policy, there was a few reasons, and one of them was your spouse is probably close to the same age you are, and if you need to be pushed around in a wheelchair,
Sure.
now two people probably need pushed around in a wheelchair. But one thing that has also been said is, with the emotion that comes out, sometimes they feel some guys would prefer to do that with another service member or something like that. So it all depends on the person, right? I'd be the same way. I'm like, no, I do everything with my wife. I want my wife to come with me if I was, in that realm. But most of the guys, like, it's cool to see when they come home, like they beeline it for their spouse, and the grandkids will come in too. But you can just tell, like, that's a good welcome.
It's almost like another reunion kind of thing, which is
yeah.
kind of fun to see. When we're out there every time as well, waiting
Yeah.
too. And it's just a good airlifting experience.
Yeah.
I explained I had brought two people for their first time last time, and I told them, I warned them, I said, your hairs are gonna stand up on your arms. And they come back and say, no, you're right. I said, well, I've never been wrong, but but I did say, they were pretty amazed that is the feeling that you get, and I get it every time I go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a one and done; it's every single time.
Well, what I tell people is just show up to one, and you'll be hooked.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll want to be at every one after that, because that's how we were. Like, after we went to one with our kids, and it was a late flight coming in and everything, and like at the time we had toddlers, like little kids, and now they're 11, 9, and now we still have a toddler. We have a 3-year-old, but that welcome home is still important. And like after that first one, is like, we got to come back to everyone we possibly can.
Now, for those listening who have not been to one, what could you tell them what they would expect to see there at a reunion at the airport, a welcome home?
So everyone's seen like I call it the Instagram style welcome home, like the service members coming home and being welcomed. It's not quite that, like, rushing out on the flight line for hugs and everything, but it's that if you don't know anybody, you get a chance to honor and thank a veteran, and in a celebration, like, not just like hey, I see you got a veteran hat, thanks for your service, and walk away. But then if you're paying attention and you see them see their family, like see that veteran come to their family in that big procession, then it's like, whoa, like I've got so many stories that I know, but one in particular is about and I served with the son who was the guardian, and he's told me, he's like, my dad never talked to me about his, and so a Vietnam guy not talking to a service member's son, like, that's, you would just assume like they swap stories type thing. And it wasn't until honor flight that he opened up about anything. And he's like, and he's still different. And I saw him I met him the night before, and then saw him when we brought him home, and you could tell there was a difference.
There's definitely got to be some therapy with that, both on the family side and the veteran side.
Yeah.
The veteran kind of releases some of his input or his inside feelings, and then the family gets to learn more of what they've done.
Well, talking about how Yvonne and I do everything together, that's one point she made. She's like, yes, there's a lot of healing for the veteran, but the family members that, we all talk about, we all have our demons, right? Like, everybody in the world has to deal with stuff. Veterans specifically have a little more than others probably. And so you've got family members that have lived with and dealt with whatever, you know, there's obviously some good to it, you know, but there's still some bad, right? Like we're not trying to hide anything here, right?
Sure.
And for those sons to get to go and then start hearing some of the stories, all of a sudden they can understand a little more. The daughters, you know, and I think it just allows them to connect a little bit. And maybe, you know, I've ran in recently to a handful of people that talk about their grandparent or their grandpa that was in World War II, or they knew somebody that was, you know, the neighbor, and like how rough they had it. And we don't talk about that side of World War II, even though it was there, right?
Yep.
And it really allows you to understand, like it has an effect on everybody throughout the family. Like any person that veteran's with, there's an effect on it in the family. So to see those guardians get to have that opportunity to see that love and respect to their family member. I mean, think about a Vietnam guy who tells their kid, yeah, I was spit on and, you know, called a baby killer. And now getting to walk behind their dad, getting welcomed and thanked and hugged and handshaken, saluted, like all the things that happen when they come
Proper
home.
respect.
That's gotta matter, not just to the veteran, but to the, you know, the family.
Yeah, then going back to what it's like when I try to explain that whole reception type thing,
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people it's a tunnel of respect. I mean, you got
I
both
like that.
sides
I like
lined
that.
up, and they have to. They don't have to. They can choose to go behind that if they're going to run
Right.
by. But they go down that whole walkway with, you know, people congratulating them and thanking them on each side of them,
Yeah.
all the way through the airport. I call it the tunnel of respect.
I like
Nothing
that.
but respect on each side.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really
Yeah.
neat. And then one thing I experienced this last trip was I saw a young lady with a sign up. Her dad had just passed away and was supposed to be on that flight. And she did one of the most heartwarming things is to be actually at that reception, knowing her dad was supposed to be on that
Yeah.
flight. And I saw the sign, and afterwards I went over to her and I did talk to her personally, let her know that myself and our VFW as a whole will be praying for her
Yeah.
and her comfort and her grief. And I thanked her for being, you know, the daughter of a service member.
Yeah.
It's a hard job, you know, even being a family member of a
Yeah.
so that was one of the most touching things in recent ones I found. It was just amazing. And talking to her, she was so strong. And she told me, she said, you know, I've never thought I'd have so much support. And I told her, I said, you're actually in the veteran community here in
Yeah.
Central Illinois. We're
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah, and the thing is it's connecting, right? So as long as we can connect to somebody, we can help them, and that's unfortunately we keep getting to the list where we're like ready to call, and then but you know the sad reality, you have to check the obituaries before we start calling, because we've had it where we call, sorry, he died 6 months ago, or oh, you didn't know he died last year, and like that brings up emotions to those loved ones too, and like we hate to be the one that they're like, sorry, we didn't get to him sooner. But that is the reality. We've got so many veterans in this community. Last look was just under 1,400 still, and we're pulling, but because we're having to prioritize medical now, like it just keeps going to where it's like, well, we didn't even have this guy on the list, but if we don't take him, he's terminal, he's not going to make it. And we've got a great medical team that works with the veterans to understand their medical needs and their situation, to say, are you safe to go? Are you not safe to go? We hate denying them for medical. We've got a medical questionnaire that we send out. It's not to eliminate somebody from getting to go,
Sure.
but it's for us to be able to give them the best care when we take them to DC. And occasionally a veteran's just too far to the point of, if we take them to DC, we could stress their body too much that they could really have a medical emergency out in DC. And we don't want to do that, not only to that veteran and their family, but to all the other veterans, and take away from the experience. So it's a hard job. Our medical lead does an amazing job. Like, again, not a service member himself, but like the way he cares for our veterans, it's just amazing to see.
So that leads me to also ask you about, how is your selection process work? A lot of people don't realize the amount of effort. It's like you said, you have to search obituaries. You've got
Right.
a list of 1,400 people.
Yeah.
You have a team that kind of prioritizes that group.
Yeah, so like first off, we sit there and just be like, if you sign up at this point, like we've been trying to finalize the 2016 signups, and then people have essentially been jumping the line because of medical reasons. And I'll apologize for that, but every veteran understands it. Like, hey, I'm in good health. I'll just wait a little longer. And I've talked to countless ones. They're like, hurry up and wait. I'm like, dang,
The government way, right?
another government way that's trying to creep in. But we'll sit there, and first it's kind of timeline, but we've got Bob Reed. He's like our only big recruiter. Like, he goes out seeking veterans, and he even if a veteran's already signed up, he'll ask, well, how's your health? Well, and there's been a handful this year already that, man, if Bob Reed wasn't out there doing what he was doing, I don't know if because they're so far on the list, like, I don't know if we would have got to them before their chance, because their medical's, getting worse. Like, you got guys, just about every Vietnam guy tells me, oh, yeah, Agent Orange. Yeah. I'm like, man, you should just get a shirt. Like, yeah, Vietnam, Agent Orange. Like,
right.
The two go hand in hand for these veterans. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality that they have to live now. And that's where so obviously it's the timeline. So that's why I always tell people, if they've got a reluctant dad that wants to, I'm like, sign them up now, because it could be 3 or 4 years before we get to them. If their health stays good, like, it could be a while. So just get them signed up, and we can argue about whether they're actually going to go when we call them and say, hey, you're picked for honor flight.
Right.
But yeah, and that's how it is. So we're making the list right now. We just sent it out. So some veterans will start getting calls this week about, hey, are you available September 3rd for, this will be the last flight out to DC for the season.
And what's the date on that?
September 3rd.
September 3rd,
Yep.
just right before my birthday.
Yeah, well, we picked Labor Day, so Labor Day will be their pre-flight dinner, and then we'll take them out to DC the next day.
Nice.
So.
Well, I think we're going to take a short break for a minute. We'll come back with Luke. I have a lot more questions for you. I'm not going to let you go easy on this deal, so stick with us, and we'll be right back after these few messages.
All right, you guys are clear. And spots.
We're cleared hot.
To 870-0020 or visit us online at podsloadedmedia.com. You're listening to a Pods Loaded Media product. Have you ever dreamed of getting your voice heard and building your own audience of listeners? Pods Loaded Media can make it happen. Give us a call today at 312-870-0020 or visit us online at podsloadedmedia.com. That's 312-870-0020 or podsloaded.com. Pods Loaded Media. Let's get your voice out there.
Hey, Craig Collins here. If you've listened to me at all anywhere that I've been, you know that I love the VFW in Peoria Heights. There's a bunch of reasons why I love it. They are now actually doing a Veteran Voices show live every Friday, hosted by Commander Chad Bailey and Quartermaster Eric Thurman of the VFW in Peoria Heights. You can go in, enjoy a drink, say hi to the staff like Jen and Trish and everybody else there. Jess is awesome on the weekend. Matt's kind of crazy. There's a bunch of people there. You'll love getting to chat with Donnie at the bar. Those are just some of the reasons that most people love going to the VFW in the Heights. The food is awesome. Say hi to Ray. The biggest reason I love it is how philanthropic they are, how much they give back. So if you go to the VFW in the Heights, 1505 East Lake Avenue in Peoria Heights, 1505 East Lake Avenue, realize that the money you're spending having fun at a bar is going to go to help people. They're a 501(c) charity, so anything they get beyond what keeps the doors open at the bar actually goes back into our community and back into veteran-related causes. The VFW in Peoria Heights, absolutely one of my favorite places to go.
Looking for top quality home exterior services? Since 1999, All About Gutters, a family-owned business, has been serving Central Illinois with pride. AAG, quality is our focal point. We offer the best in gutters, leaf-proof, screen, and more. Our products are locally sourced to ensure superior quality and control. No job is too big or too small for All About Gutters. Call them today at 309-682-2100 or visit allaboutgutters.com. Your house is our house at AAG.
Yeah. All right, we're back here at Veteran Voices with our guest Luke Rosenbohm of the Greater Peoria Honor Flight. And Luke, I told you I was going to kind of blast you a little bit here with some information. We always talk about the Honor Flight, and we kind of all know about the Honor Flight, what it's about. But you guys have come up with something more unique for the Central Illinois area, and I think it's probably the first in the nation that I've ever heard about. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Operation Penguin. We have, like I told you about the medical process of selecting, and some guys, they don't get the opportunity to go out to DC for medical reasons. We've got some veterans that, nope, I've taken my last flight, I'm never getting on a plane again. Okay. Or I just don't want to go out to DC. They still deserve to be honored, right? So we've heard other hubs trying to like bring these kind of veterans, and they have like a little presentation about what's in DC, and what one way it was put as, yeah, what they miss not going out to DC. And I'm like, ouch, that kind of hurts.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, this was in January. My wife, we're talking about some ideas about something else, and she just flies into the room. She's like, what if we just do an honor flight here in Peoria? And I'm like, fly a plane up and land right back in Peoria? That doesn't sound like, and she's like, we don't need a plane if we're just going to stay here. And then we started talking about, okay, well, where could we stop? What could we do? So it wasn't we just finalized it last week with the Peoria Civic Center. We wanted a launch and recovery point, parking, obviously a place to come together. But yeah, this is a flightless flight that we're going to have a day of honor right here in Central Illinois. So the one cool thing that I'm excited about, the community always asks, how can we help? How can we help? Well, when we're out in DC, there's not a lot for you to do, right? We're out in DC, you're in Peoria. So this is going to be where they can actually be a part of an honor flight, just right here in Peoria. So we've got our stops lined up, and we've already got 11 people that are interested in going. So we'll do this last call for this September flight, and then everybody that was either unable to go for medical reasons or said, I'd prefer not to, we're going to fill up. We're shooting for 30. I think it won't be hard to get 30 veterans at all.
Awesome.
Our max, I think we're going to just stick to 75. So it's like, this is new. So like, what I say today, next week, be like, oh, that's a bad idea. We're not going to do that.
I know you have us driving a bus for
Yeah.
a lot of things, and we're going to also participate in the Penguin flight,
Yeah.
the flightless Penguin
Yeah.
flight.
Well, so the cool. Let me at least hit that part. So, penguins, birds that don't fly, right? There's also the Penguin Project here in Central Illinois. So people with, if they have a disability, they still have the opportunity to perform on stage. So they do musicals and stuff like that. So we got to watch one. A friend of ours was a part of it, and we're watching. I'm like, this is just amazing. Like the things these kids like work through and like put a performance on. This is amazing. So I was like, hey, you just think it'd be bad to like maybe piggyback off the whole penguin thing? Like, and they're like, no, that's cool. And it was between a penguin and an ostrich. I think those are the two flightless birds out there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, there are some grumpy old vets that would be just like an ostrich, but I think penguins are a little cuter, a little cuddlier.
A little more recognizable too.
So
I mean.
we'll go with the penguin flightless bird.
Nice. Now, who came up with the idea of that?
I'm gonna give that 100% to Yvonne. Like, she was the one that was like, we can do this here, we can make this happen in the realm of it. So like I said, we had seen that they would get people that couldn't go together, and like we'd heard about it, but I don't know if it's to the extent. And I've heard of some people like, well, we'll go here, or but we're gonna get them on a bus. We're gonna go down to the courthouse because there's the memorials down at the courthouse. Then the 182nd is willing to host us for lunch, and kind of like a little bit of a show and tell, like just let the veterans be able to, hang out with the service members. And then the traveling wall, the Vietnam traveling wall, is going to be in East Peoria during that same time.
Perfect.
So we said, all the pieces are right here. So that is because most of our veterans are Vietnam era. That is the key thing I knew we needed to have. So when we heard the dates, it's like, this is perfect. Like, we'll be able to use that. And then the welcome home will still go on. Obviously not out at the airport. We're going to do it at the Civic Center. Once they heard about what we wanted to do, and they're like, sign us up. We're happy to help. So some really great people over there willing to help us out.
So you're going to try recruiting some local people to come out and celebrate as they do at the airport?
Yes.
Except this time, go to the Civic Center.
Go to the Civic Center
And
for the
what was
Penguin
date? What's the
flight.
date on the Penguin flight?
26th of September.
26th September. That's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought up the bus thing, because we already committed to doing the bus.
Yeah.
And we already know about the Penguin flight.
Right.
But we haven't heard any details of it. And I know it's because you're probably going to tell me it's
Oh, yeah.
because it's so flexible.
Yeah, well, and that's
But-
just it. Like, so one thing, we've had some veterans that don't want to be stuck out in DC the whole time.
Sure.
So we'll have chase vehicles. So like, hey, if you're done, if the day gets too much for you, we'll take you back to your car. Like, I hope it doesn't get to that point.
Sure.
But the flexibility of being able to make sure that they can feel comfortable throughout the day, that's the whole point. Honor the veteran. If that means the veteran's done for the day, the veteran's done for the day. We've kind of condensed. We were talking about, I mean, in the planning phase, is like, maybe we go down to Springfield, there's a bunch of stuff down there, or go here and have all these stops. It's like, one of the things one of the difficult parts for some of these veterans is the long day. So
Sure.
let's keep it. It's still going to be a full day. It's still going to be we'll start checking in probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock is what we're shooting for right now. And we won't be getting back to the Civic Center until about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Oh, nice.
But within the day, so that way we want the kids to be able to come out. You know, the one thing I've always heard from veterans is there were kids there. A kid came up and said thank you. When we're out in DC, this last time, 3 different tours of 8th graders lined the sidewalks down to the World War II
that's really cool.
memorial, and we're just saying thank you for your service. Like, those guys were talking about that for hours, even when we were at the airport. I can't believe that a bunch of kids were sitting there thanking me for my service. So, like, if we can bring the community out, which
Sure.
Peoria always shows up. Like, this community,
Right.
all you got to do is let them know what we need, and
Yeah.
they show up.
It was neat because on that ride back with the veterans taking them back to the hotel, we noticed that the big thing they were talking about was they got to talk to kids about
Yeah.
their service.
Yeah.
It's important, I think, to them is the education of kids, being brought up right with the right information,
Yeah.
things that are being forgotten and not taught in schools anymore. I think that's very important to some of these veterans as well.
Well, I remember learning about Vietnam War in high school. They weren't telling me all. Well, I take that back. One of our teachers was a veteran, and so he was like, actually, we'd go through the part. You're like, and to add on, I'm like, so I guess I had a little more than the average, but like what the books were teaching wasn't as much as what these veterans will tell you.
Right.
And that's important.
It's very
because they
important,
lived
sure.
history.
Now, are you going to also incorporate a lot of your setups and things that you do for the honor flight, for the Penguin flight, bringing your crew over to kind of do the registration stuff?
Yep. Yeah. So we'll still be checking them in. So basically what you see at the airport when we're checking them in, we're going to do that at the Civic Center now. And then one of the things, weather's always, you never know in Central Illinois.
Sure.
Especially when you're planning this far out. So we're actually using one of the exhibit halls to be able, if we need to pull the buses in to get them loaded, that way it's a more comfortable setting. And then if it's pouring down rain, when we're coming back, guess what? We pull them in and we can get them all off the buses.
Nice.
Just trying to think all those things. So yeah, checking them in. We'll have we won't do a pre-flight dinner this time, but we will have the morning. We'll get them all seated, get them all comfortable, have a little bit of a welcome ceremony, and then get them on the buses, get them out to the memorials, and then start taking them. The wing commander over at the 182nd is all about helping veterans out here. So
That's awesome.
when I asked if they wanted to be a part of it, there wasn't any hesitation. It was like anything for the veterans, like whatever we can do to help them. And then one veteran even said, "So I'm going to get to ride in the C-130?" I was like, no, you're not. Remember that whole flightless thing? Like, this is the reason you're doing this one. And that's the other thing. Like, we don't want to take away from somebody going out to DC, because some people are like, well, if I just do this, then I don't.
Right.
At least I get this, and then maybe I go on the flight later. I'm like, no, it's a one or the other. Like, either stay in line for the other one, you can't jump the line. So, but the one thing we are going to allow our spouses to go on this
nice.
flightless flight, because again, going back to some people just want their spouse, and if they're already not going out to DC, that could have been a factor. So this will allow them to go with their spouse. If we need to take an extra guardian with them for whatever scenario, we get to be a little more flexible, because the biggest thing we're restricted to going out to DC is we get 183 seats out of Sun Country. That's all the seats they got. Like, we fill them up. So that's our limitation. Whereas here, we need to get another bus, we get another bus.
Right. And your costs are probably significantly lower here as well.
Yep. And so we're gonna, guardian fees are just gonna be $60. So on the flight, it's $550. So, but that should help cover the cost. And so far, most people have been saying, hey, how can I help? And so any financial help that we can get in sponsorships or support that people want to give for this is going to be great.
That's great. You're shooting for a 4 o'clock, 4:30 return to the Civic Center?
4:30 to 5 o'clock is what we expect.
So then you tell everybody to get there at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, if you tell everybody to get at 4, you told me to be here at 6, and I was here before the show started. Smart.
Someone gets a little tied up, That's great. Well, this is going to conclude our show for today, and I want to thank you for coming and being our guest
thanks
on
for
our
having me.
show. And if you have more questions for us, you can text our text, which is 309. We don't remember the number. We'll have to get back to
Well,
you.
if you need
later
more
on.
information on Honor Flight, greaterpeoriahonor.org.
Yeah, there you go. GreaterPeoriaHonorFlight.org, and you can always send a message to those guys over there. Yeah. And thanks again for tuning in.
You're listening to a Pods Loaded Media product. Have you ever dreamed of getting your voice heard and building your own audience of listeners? Pods Loaded Media can make it happen. Give us a call today at 312-870-0020 or visit us online at podsloadedmedia.com. That's 312-870-0020 or podsloaded.com. Pods Loaded Media. Let's get your voice out there.
Hey to all my dog lovers out there. Do you remember the first time you got a puppy? If it was like me, you got one under the Christmas tree when you were a little kid. Or maybe you remember the first time that you got a puppy for your family as an adult and your kids went crazy when they realized that this dog was staying with them. The power of a pet, the power specifically of a dog, cannot be understated. And if you're a veteran in need, Freedom Paws Service Dogs is an organization that trains dogs specifically to help with all the different things that our heroes struggle with after they come home, after they've fought to protect our country. Freedom Paws Service Dogs is located in Chillicothe. Their phone number is 309-232-8942. That's 309-232-8942. If you want to help give the gift that has meant a lot to so many families, and you want to also help heroes that defended your freedom, Freedom Paws Service Dogs in Chillicothe, never walk alone. Help our veterans today.
Hey, Central Illinois, looking for that perfect shave? Visit the Shave Rooms, where kings are groomed. Our expert barbers provide top-notch grooming services using premium products in a relaxing, upscale environment. From classic shaves to modern cuts, we have it all. Treat yourself to a grooming experience like no other. Visit the Shave Rooms today and leave looking and feeling your best. Book your appointment today at shaverooms.com. The Shave Rooms, where kings are groomed.
And that is the Veteran Voices episode. Eric Thurman talking to Luke Rosenbohm. I will fix the spelling on Rumble, but it's right on your Veteran Voices page on Facebook.
I didn't make the mistake because I never make mistakes.
I know.
Craig.
That'll be fine. So we'll be doing this every single Friday. Wherever we move to, I have to break everything in front of me down and set it all back up. And we have an internet stream now.
Yes.
You added another layer.
That'd be sweet.
You made it harder for me when I came out here.
you
I had to
said you
bring
wanted
like
to
another
produce it at
computer
some
and
point.
crap. I was sitting there with my wife, and I'm like, this is so cool. We have internet, streaming. We're basically a radio station. We just don't have the antenna and stuff yet. And then as I'm starting to pack up to come here, I'm like, shit, I have to bring a whole bunch more stuff to get here and then set it all up in the corner. And so it took forever. And so that is part of the reason why there was no Craig Collins show today.
We're just testing that commitment, Craig.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, there we go. You prevail or something. What's the saying in the military? You just
adapt and overcome.
adapt and overcome. Yeah, thank you. I didn't do anything even close to that. But but anyway, so we'll share a bunch of links to all this stuff. We're going to have a Rumble page and a YouTube page created for Veteran Voices. You guys are going to have a podcast thing out there everywhere. Anything
Facebook
else?
page we gotta
Yeah.
get built up. Yes,
Are you
yeah,
going to
about
surprise
this
me
week.
with something next week?
I will probably surprise you with something, Craig.
Thanks, dude. That's awesome.
I'm
One
on fire right now.
One last thing I do want to talk about is Casper Brewing. I love the fact that we're going to start drinking during this. Can I have one of those every day when I do the Craig Collins show?
You know what?
Is that cool?
Down here, we can probably arrange
No,
that.
man. Can I just have like some sort of tap that I bring home? Like that'd be nice. Give me a keg.
I can probably
Yeah, give
work
me a
something
home
out.
keg. Yeah.
I
Let's
can
do it.
probably work something out.
All right, cool. I'll swing by with you to Casper then, and I'll just be kegging as I talk about the news of the day. That sounds exactly correct.
We have to broadcast from Casper Brewing.
Sure, let's do that.
We can just take
Yeah.
a sample of everything they got.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'll bring all the shit that I have now all the way to Bloomington.
19 samples all in one
Fantastic.
shot. We just do the whole show on the sample.
At some point, I'd love it if we had one location we stayed in for a while, and then we could even leave stuff set up there for a bit. That'd be not. If at some point we can do that, that'd sound great.
We can probably do that at some point.
No. But all joking aside, thank you to the VFW and Peoria Heights for being a huge part of all the things we're doing. And a lot is coming up over the next few months that we're very excited about.
We're very excited about it.
Cool. And you keep showing me pictures of transmitters. You do keep doing that. You keep showing them to me.
I have a dream.
Uh-huh.
I think the VFW has a dream. I think the community has a dream, Craig, and
Right.
you're going to be a key part of that. And
It'll be cool.
if we keep building this up and we build to where it needs to be, that could be even sooner dream coming alive.
Well, and one of the coolest things about you is in the Navy, you were a radio guy.
That's right. I was.
So you know how to build a lot of the stuff that is necessary for this, like
And I'm
tonight.
an amateur radio operator right now.
There we go. Yeah, exactly correct. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, for being a part of this. Thank you to all our sponsors, everybody that's helping out, and we look forward.
I'm a guest today, you know.
Yeah, it was a good
I
guess.
mean, I got to go back and probably buy him a beer to come in. But,
I saw you wore the Honor Flight
yeah,
hat, by the
I
way.
didn't even say a word about
Yeah,
it,
way
you
to
know?
be a kiss ass. Just a little bit there. Yeah, just a little. I know
Hey,
you.
you
I,
know.
I know you want to go on the next flight, and I know that that's probably helping you out with that. Yeah. Okay.
He
Cool.
told me I can spray the wheels down before it takes off. That's about it. Make
Come
the
on,
wheels
we need
shine.
somebody to record there. You got to go on the next. Okay. Cool. Just show up. Just show up day of and see what
I'm
happens.
gonna show up with like
Yeah.
5 microphones.
Yeah.
And just barely get a
Yeah.
hold
Just
of them.
start walking toward the plane and see if when they stop you.
There
That
you
sounds
go.
good. All right.
I'll get tackled, I'm sure. I just hope it's a good looking one.
That's true. All right. We'll see you later. Talk to you guys next week.